High performance coaching is one of those situations where you have someone, in the case of the people I work with, they're mostly executives, but it's been film stars, politicians, athletes, all kinds of business people, mums and dads and ordinary folk as well, but people who are already performing well. That's to a pretty high standard already. How do you get them to go even further? So typically what we're looking at least, when we're talking about in the business context, we're talking about how someone is using the features and characteristics of their situation in order to create the results they're creating. But then we also look at how they create, for example, their own limitations, their own problems, their own obstacles. A big part of high performance coaching in the executive context is we look at how the client is framing issues in such a way that they're missing obvious possibilities and obvious information. I had one client who, when we started working together, their business was turning over $25 billion a year. There is nothing that I can tell this individual about how to run their business better. In fact, if they were seeking that, then they probably wouldn't have been at that level. But the question with this person is that they seemed to be so stretched in terms of their time, in terms of their physical and mental energies, that they didn't know how they were going to advance and how they were going to bring their company to the next level. So what we did in the coaching work was we found out where they were putting the boundaries down and what were the other possibilities. So essentially, we were seeking out what the limits and boundaries were, and then what the alternatives were to that. What could be done in addition with the resources they had? What other sorts of resources would have to be acquired? And over a 3-year period, they went from 25 billion to over 50 billion in revenues. That's not because of what I said. That's not because of my genius or my knowledge of their industry. It happened because of their genius, their knowledge of their industry, and someone who understands how the decision-making processes work, how obstacles come up, how people construct their own worlds, and how to make better use of resources and help them to reflect more effectively on what they were doing. Is it magic? No. Is it a skill? Most definitely. It's one that can be developed and acquired. When we're talking about, working with athletes, when you have somebody who's always already performing well, there will be aspects of their game that simply isn't up to scratch. At different points in their career, an athlete might find some part of their game is falling apart. So typically, one of the things that you'll do with a high-performing athlete is deconstruct this part of their game, this swing, this whatever it is, and rebuild it. Find out what the possibilities are. The great challenge in every sportsman's life is the injury. Almost every sportsman has a story about the potentially career-ending injury and how they deal with that and how they address it and get through it or not. Career-changing things happen when they get injured. So how do you deal with that situation? It's still about boundaries and limitations. It's still about resources, and it's still about where they want to go. It's just that the tools and the models will be different. In the same way, when we're talking about somebody who just wants to improve their life, I have clients who are high-performing individuals who felt that they weren't getting as much as they should be out of life. We apply the same processes and models, but the style is completely different. Perhaps less on the profit side, or less on this side, or less on that side. But it's still about how to take that point of view and that practice of life and make it so that more of what's possible can occur. This is different from remedial coaching. Remedial coaching is when there is an identified problem in somebody's performance. You're then working to find out what's leading to that problematic demonstration, what makes that seem to be the right thing, what's made it habituated in, and then finding the path to changing it. But for the high-performing context, the defining characteristic is that the individual is already performing up to or beyond expectation in whatever the area of focus is.